Hello everyone, this is Cobalt. This is the next video in my character analysis series for Brawlhalla. Stick around till the end to hear about entering the giveaway to win community colors, emotes, weapon skins, sidekicks, avatars, or even the battle pass, and voting for the next legends. And if you want to skip all this and get straight into the information, there's a timestamp in the description, and don't forget to subscribe so you can keep up with the release of your favorite legend. In these analyses, I wanted to focus solely on the character's signatures. Light attack combos are covered much more in depth than I ever could elsewhere and function pseudo-comparably for all characters of that weapon class. So I'm not going to be discussing the general neutral of the character with their weapons unless it pertains in some way to their signatures. Firstly, I want to give clear descriptions of the terminology I'll be using. Startup frames are the amount of frames that happen after a move has begun until the first hitbox of the move becomes active. Active frames are the duration of frames that the move contains hitboxes that can collide with your opponent. FAF, or First Actionable Frame, is the first frame available where your character is able to move again after the move has been started. For all of this data, I use the character's jump to display the first actionable frame. Lastly, On Miss refers to the move not connecting with an opponent, and On Hit refers to the move making contact with an opponent. I'm going to be doing my analysis today on the next voted in legend, Volkov. Volkov was the king of Batava at one point. I didn't know this until I read up on it, but he's actually one of Caspian's ancestors. He could be his dad, grandfather, or further back, but is definitely in the same bloodline, which I find interesting. Caspian refers to him as Gramps, so grandfather is likely. Anyway, he ruled the castle of Batavia, which was built over a portal to hell. He was eventually turned into a vampire. He removed his heart to prevent having it staked, and became an even more ferocious warrior than before. Volkov's weapons are Axe and Scythe. He's seen a few competitive results, mostly whenever he was originally released, and can still function well in twos, but he's kind of fallen off in terms of his competitive performance. He has a slightly awkward stat distribution with 4 attack, 8 dexterity, 6 defense, and 4 speed. He obviously lacks in both speed and knockout potential thanks to his rather meager stats in these categories. I think he has primarily seen competitive results thanks to his weapon combination over anything else, but let's check out his signatures and see if their frame data has something to do with it. Let's start with his Axe. Axe Side Sig has 17 frames of startup, active frames from 18 to 25 with an FAF of 46. It functions the same on miss as it does on hit. Volkov charges forward with an upward swing from his axe after a certain distance. The Sig has slightly below average startup and lower than average FAF. The hitboxes on this move aren't particularly large, and it has comparable coverage to Downlight on axe in terms of hitbox coverage, with some added threat coverage thanks to the range that he moves forward. I honestly think that this Sig is just okay. It's not incredibly fast and doesn't have a huge amount of threat coverage, but can serve as a decent burst option if spaced correctly. Axe Neutral Sig has 17 frames of startup, active frames from 18 to 23, and 38 to 45 with an FAF of 62. It functions the same on miss as it does on hit. Volkov jumps upward and performs a large slice from his wings, followed by a large swing from his axe. It can cover jumping opponents as well as those recovering high. It's got okay startup given its movement and has reasonable power to it. It has a decent amount of active frames and can catch those options really well thanks to its lengthy duration. It does have a high FAF, however, so if you miss, you're certainly in a position to be punished pretty hard for it, though you can get conversions off of a dodge read after a downlight at lower damage ranges. Axe Down Sig has 21 frames of startup, active frames from 22 to 31 and 39 to 47 with an FAF of 62. It functions differently on miss than it does on hit. Should the move connect, the first 2 hits link into a third with active frames from 59 to 66 with a new FAF of 82. Volkov jumps slightly into the air before swinging his axe downward twice. If either of these 2 hits connects, Volkov converts into a third hit. This Sig has above average startup and FAF with a decent amount of active frames. It can kill pretty well and offers decent coverage in front of him, but should it miss, it's pretty punishable. I think it's just okay, honestly. Kinda lackluster. Next up is his Scythe. Scythe Side Sig has 19 frames of startup, active frames from 20 to 35 with an FAF of 51. It functions differently on miss than it does on hit. The Sig utilizes active input, which I did not miss this time, and has variable frame data based on which direction you send your opponent. The initial active frames remain the same, and additional active frames are added from 72 to 77 or 70 to 77, with a new FAF of 104 or 92 based on whether you send the opponent's left or right respectively. Volkov flares his wings out in front of him, releasing a flurry of bats with active hitboxes. If this connects, Volkov teleports and swings his scythe at the opponent either left or right depending on the input from the player and sends the opponent in the opposite direction. It has average frame data in terms of its startup and slightly below average FAF. It has okay active frames, it has pretty solid coverage in front of him, and can offer Volkov effective mix-up options in terms of directional input. Scythe Neutral Sig has 20 frames of startup, active frames from 21 to 66 with an FAF of 81. It functions the same on miss as it does on hit. Volkov jumps into the air, moving forward horizontally while swinging his scythe repeatedly in front of him. The Sig has a crazy amount of active frames, over half a second, so if you jump or are airborne against the Sig, you will likely be caught by it, even if you try and dodge through it, thanks to its high amount of active frames. The downside of the Sig, however, is the rest of the frame data. Its startup is average, it has pretty high FAF, so it can be punished pretty hard on miss. Volkov is still airborne whenever he's able to move again, so you may be able to evade a punish option, but use this one with caution since it doesn't hit grounded opponents or as a punish option. Scythe down Sig has 25 frames of startup, active frames from 26 to 41 with an FAF of 63. It functions differently on miss than it does on hit. Should the move connect, it functions as a command grab with a new FAF of 77. Volkov summons a small group of bats in front of him, and if it connects with the opponent, Volkov drags them towards them and delivers a hefty scythe swing, sending them forward. It doesn't have the best frame data, above average in terms of both startup and FAF, and it has a very niche spacing to it, but it can catch opponents as spaced off ledge well, which offers it some unique utility. An interesting Sig, just okay in terms of its utility, however. So, overall, his Sigs are honestly significantly slower than I had anticipated them to be, especially coming off of a character with such high dexterity. His lowest startup is only frame 17, and his lowest FAF is at 46, though the FAF on this isn't bad. His Sigs have a decent amount of active frames on some of them, which I think explains the higher average FAF values, but with his relatively low comparable knockout potential to other legends, I think that these active frames may be a hindrance to him, especially on miss. I think that his weapons are both really solid in the competitive metagame right now, so I think that offers him some potential since Axe can knock out early even with a lower attack stat, but just purely based off his frame data, I don't think that these signatures are game-breaking. But I think that the active frame duration on a lot of these can catch opponents that even have the slightest bit of unfamiliarity with his kit. So learn how long each of these moves last so you can avoid them and punish them. I think Volkov is okay, not the best character, but I like his design and his origin story tie-in with Caspian. Today's code to put down in the comments is Underworld, along with your Twitter handle, and if you get that reference, I appreciate it. Also, feel free to check out my Twitch channel. I'll be streaming viewer battles at some point soon, so keep an eye out and come say hello. The channel will be linked in the description below. Tune in Monday for coverage on the highest voted legend from this week. This is the final video of the week, so I'll announce the winners, and the poll will be closed later this evening, so be sure to get your comments in. I'll be continuing this once a day, Monday through Friday, over the next 10 weeks until all 50 legends are covered. We're 7 weeks down, just 3 more to go. So thanks for joining me on this ride. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the release of your favorite legend, and hope to see you back for the next one. Once again, I'm Cobalt, and thanks for watching.